Hey Ben.
Hey, Joseph.
So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, I think we have a couple of things to talk about.
Yeah.
But before everything, we're going to talk about one very, very simple thing, which is growth graph.
Yes, let's talk about growth graph. So what's growth graph?
It's our new podcast.
Awesome.
And it's not just an audio podcast, so you get to see my face,
Yeah.
the voice behind the face. But more than that, it's a very interesting conversation that you and I are going to have about multiple things.
So just to give a quick context, right? So growth graph is a show where we talk about three things. And what are those three things?
Number one.
Yeah.
Number one.
Yeah.
Events.
Awesome. And we also talk about content and how content really works. And what's the third thing?
And I've completely forgotten that.
It's network. Okay, great. So we talk about events, content, and network, and how, as a B2B marketer or a founder or enterprise leader, how can you unpack what you really have and take it from there?
And I think a lot of people have trouble, especially when it comes to content, because they struggle to create a ton of content.
Right.
And you end up coming up with calendars. After 2 months, the calendar gets hit into a choco block, and you don't know, you're rehashing old stuff. You're trying to make the calendar work.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, content needs to come natural, or at least that's where I come from.
Absolutely.
It has to be something that flows with who you are, what you do, and how you do it at the end of the day. And that's where I believe events is a very critical and important element of what we want to talk about.
Yep. So when content gets colorful, it becomes an event. And so that's how I see it. Content is content when it has an influence of joy, it becomes an event, and it's a place where you gather, you talk about stuff, and you meet people, and it's all about experiences, right? So I'm excited to talk about these three aspects. And so let's talk a little bit about how was your day, man, and how what was your special thing that happened today? Like, what's that one highlight?
One highlight I would say is we got a new client.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Right? And we've onboarded them. I don't want to let out any names at this juncture, but everyone's going to know very soon enough.
Mm-hmm.
We're partnered with the Global FinTech Fest.
Oh, nice.
And they're going to come out. They've joined hands with us for the Global FinTech Fest podcast. And so you'll be seeing the names across all channels.
Wow.
Soon to come.
Great.
So I'll pause there because that's the highlight of my day. So
got it. So you want to check the Global FinTech Fest podcast that's coming up. I think we've done six episodes so far.
A little more than that, 6 episodes public, but yeah.
Okay.
We've
Nice.
got a couple more coming in, and then we're gonna have another 24 episodes coming after that.
Wow. Okay.
So lots to expect.
Absolutely.
From the podcast.
Yep. And my highlight was I went and met somebody called MR, and MR Rangasamy is a well-known name. He runs something called Indiaspora.
Okay.
And he's built a phenomenal network of Indians all across the globe, the Indian diaspora.
Right.
And that's been a great highlight to meet the man, in flesh and blood.
Nice.
And, talk to him about upcoming, big festivity called India Innovation Week.
Right.
Which
remember that name.
Yeah, which we'll talk a little later about.
Yep.
But yeah, that's been my highlight of my day. So, what did we talk about today? Like, what's the main thing that we talk about?
So I remember speaking to this gentleman from some time back. And just to give context to those listening and watching, this gentleman has a passion for startups. He also has a passion for communities.
Wow.
Building communities. In fact, he's gone ahead and written a book called Community in a Box.
Right.
So any guesses? Now's the time to comment. But
yeah, you should do that.
Right. But what I really like about the man, when I had that conversation, he was all ears, full of enthusiasm, all ears to hear what we had to say. Because at that point in time when we had the conversation, we were building a community of our own, slightly different type of community, but he was all ears and wanted to really help us and take things away. I think 8 months later, you happened to be in Israel.
Yeah.
And I got to know through social media that he was in Israel. And I think I put two and two together.
Yeah.
And then you both had the lovely pleasure of meeting each other and having fruitful
Absolutely.
conversations.
Absolutely. So the quick backstory, folks, is that I wanted to meet him way, way back.
I think you introduced him to me.
Yes, I
Yeah.
did. And so I met him on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is a great place to meet amazing people. And I started having these conversations with him. And we realized that we're going to be in the same place in Thailand.
Right.
And this is for a big event, an energy event. And I was supposed to bump into him,
Right.
but we couldn't connect.
It didn't happen.
It didn't happen. And very interestingly, after a point of time, I was in Tel Aviv, and I was attending another conference on cybersecurity,
Right.
and that's where I met this amazing person. And so the big reveal, you want to do that?
Mr. Mark Birch.
Mr. Mark Birch. Yes. We're talking about Mr. Mark Birch, and the reason we're talking about this one person is because, as Ben, you just mentioned that he's passionate about communities, and one of the things that we want to talk about today is network.
Yeah.
And we want to unpack what network really means and how to do effective networking.
Right.
And using Mark Birch as the shoulder to shoot from.
Fair enough.
Awesome. So what's network according to you, Ben?
So, contrary to common belief where everyone talks about a network as a place or a group of people, I believe that network is, yes, it has the consistency of having content, having a group of people who consume that content, but it doesn't have to be constrained to an app or to like a social media platform, right? Could be across the board.
Yeah.
So if you consume a specific type of content, so I'm part of Mark Birch's network.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? You would be part of his network, but we may not be in the same network. He might have multiple networks, but we're still part of that network. So that's how I would define network. So I will have a unique network of people. You will have a unique network of people. And in that Venn diagram, there will be a common area because of our history, our the events we've attended. It could be, people we've met. Could be from two different worlds at two different times. It doesn't matter, but they still fall inside that network. So that's how I kind of loosely, it's a very loose definition for me, but interesting to know how you would consider what networking is.
So for me, network is more about, we all have, certain needs. We all have certain wants, and we are people-centric by nature.
Yep.
And so it's all about relationships and connections, as you rightly mentioned, and the very degrees of it.
Right.
So more you get close to somebody, and you get close because preferences match.
Correct.
So somebody likes the same color like you, then hey, you like, wow, voila. I mean, I think we got close.
Right.
And let's say they come from the same place as yours, and then you're like, oh, well, I think this is more interesting. And then let's say you like the same kind of food, then you're like, whoa, wow, this is like a lot of matches, and then you get more closer. And so varied degrees. But it's all about, your wants and desires and your needs that are being met. It could be a need for validation. It could be a need to do business. It could be a need to probably transact.
Bounce ideas.
Bounce ideas and different things, right? Yeah. So network is all about that. And one of the reasons why people really fail at networking is because they're not very sure about what they really want from the network. And so what they think is that networking is game of going and meeting new people, exchanging cards. And just saying hello, and then bring the bunch of cards back.
Right.
And there's no affinity that you've built with the other person.
Right.
And so that person is really not part of your network.
Correct.
He's part of
acquaintance.
Yeah, he's an acquaintance. It's part of your stack of cards, so to speak, right? So you can deal with those cards, but it's not going to go beyond that, right? And so one of the things, I learned from a master networker that I know, personally, I mean, we also share office space with him,
right?
Is that he constantly, is doing something which flips the whole thing. And powerful networkers have something really amazing, which is they don't build a network to meet an immediate need. Okay? And they actually build a network, or they build these relationships and affinities for somebody else.
Right.
And so they don't have any qualms about making introductions to somebody,
Right.
because they find that these two people could come together and create value,
Right.
and they also are not looking at anything short term.
Got it.
So if you want to build a very strong, powerful network, you're thinking long term.
Right.
And it's like, if you want to go raise funding, you can't raise funding by creating a bunch of list of all the potential investors, and you're like, hey, let's go hopping and calling all these people and start meeting them. But it's about a series of events, a series of meetings,
Right.
which are non-agenda based,
Mm.
which will finally help you lead you to a place where you have now a network.
Right.
And even if they don't invest in you, but they are still going to be your soundboard
Right.
to give you ideas and tell you if it makes sense or not.
Essentially, they can take your idea, just going back to this investing
Right.
principle. They can take your idea and say, I might not be the best person for this, but
Yeah.
I know the best person,
Absolutely.
and I will put you in touch with it.
Yes.
Now you've built that network because
Yes.
you can bank on them. You can interact with them in some
Absolutely.
format or the other.
Yeah. So networks, by and large, are strong ones. If you're building one,
Yeah.
is not transactional,
Right.
but it's more so that there is a real layer of relationship.
Right.
At the same time, there's some bit of give and take, which
There's
you
always
both,
that, yeah.
which you both are mutually okay with and you agree on.
Got it.
And this is a dance that you have to master.
Right.
And now let's come back to our man of the hour, Mark Birch. So I found Mark Birch to be an amazing networker
Mm.
because in his previous avatar at Stack Overflow,
Yeah.
he was heading the community for them.
Correct.
And then he picked up a lot of principles and he put all of this together, and then he wrote a book. But then he went and lived it out. And today he's a global advocate for AWS.
Right.
And he is somebody you would find in a lot of events in the APAC region and across the globe. I've met him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I met him in Thailand. I've met him. I was supposed to meet him in Thailand.
Huh. And then you met him in Middle East.
I met him in Middle East, and he's all over the place.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you find in him, as you rightly mentioned, is that he is always wanting to be helpful.
Correct.
And so that is a very strong hallmark of being a networker.
And I kind of also realized one thing with Mark. He not only just goes and, as part of his AWS hat that he wears, that's just a hat he wears, essentially.
Right.
He actually goes to those meetings and goes to those places because he wants to truly and genuinely sync up and network with these people.
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
And so I've seen a couple of videos that I really liked. He will say, hey, Singapore, here, this is here.
Yeah,
and then he kind of like
absolutely,
shows the
yes.
whole crowd and everybody goes, hey,
Yeah. Yep.
And so you can't really move a crowd like that unless you've actually kind of spent some time with them.
Absolutely.
And these are visits over a period of 2 days.
Yes.
And he's able to actually gain momentum and build that, momentum with those people in order to get them. And so he's actually building genuine relationships with those individual people, building his network as he goes. And that's where I really like the man.
Phrase. So what I like about Mark is that there are two things, right? So he creates a lot of content, and this content moves the network.
Correct.
And so he's constantly on social media creating content. But this is not from a perspective that, hey, my content has to rank, my content has to be in a place where it gets a lot of likes and all of that.
To be honest, I watch his content just to know where he is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Right? It's got nothing to do with what he's doing there, but I want to know what's the new place he's visited. I remember thinking very selfishly, like, I wish I had his job, I could travel the world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, of course, living on a suitcase is not the best thing in the world, but, that was the angle from which I consume his content.
Got it.
So I'm part of his network from that angle. Here's a guy who travels. He's able to do what he loves, and he travels. And traveling is what he loves,
So there's one part of the content part, but there's also this other part that he has, which is, he's able to take this network and expose this network to many others. And he's like, hey, I'm in Singapore, and I like to meet anybody who's...
Come meet me.
Yeah, come meet me. And then I've seen him connecting people with other people, right? So very genuinely. And that's a force on its own.
Right.
It's a force for greater good and a force that binds people together. And it's really, really amazing. So I think a lot to learn from Mark.
Yeah.
Yep.
Totally.
And I think that's one of the reasons why meeting people like this has cemented this idea to to think more deeper, right? And that's why we're building this whole thing called Lumos forum, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and again, we focused on these three things, right? Events, content, and
Networks.
network. Yeah. So to speak, like people like March, keep. I mean, like Mark, sorry, keep inspiring us.
Yeah,
to
totally.
to do this, and probably in the coming weeks we'll talk a lot more about Lumos and what Lumos is. I mean,
Yeah,
sounds
we should,
yes,
because I'm sure now people are going to be wondering, okay, what's this Lumos all
yeah,
about,
absolutely.
right? So we'll light your path. Don't worry.
Yes, we like your part. Yep. So we'll do that, and we'll talk a little bit about all of this. And I think as we draw to a close, in today's episode, I wanted to talk about a tool that I really like. It's called clay.earth.
Okay.
I don't know if you checked that out.
Sometime back, yeah.
Yep. So clay.earth is a very powerful tool, and I mean, just think about it, right? You have your phone, you have
Laptop.
a laptop, you have basically your email, you have your social network, but you don't have a place where all of these contacts come together, right? So Clay.earth, what it does is it pulls all your contacts, puts them in one single sheet,
Right.
and every day it reminds you, hey, why didn't you talk to this person? Because it's been over 48 days that you have
You
actually
haven't reached out.
you have not reached out to them. And some of the times it reminds me like, hey, it's been over 2 years that you have not like spoken to this person at all, right? So a lot of times we are so fast to go and send these connection requests on LinkedIn,
Right.
and we at that point of time think that this is worth doing and taking this whole effort of getting this person on my network,
But we don't nurture it.
but you don't nurture it. Exactly. And so Clay.earth is a great, beautiful tool. And a disclaimer, Clay.earth is not paying us to talk about
Yeah.
it. But just in case you really want to expand your network,
Yeah.
Clay.earth is a great place. And
Great tool,
and
yeah.
some of the things that we see in Clay.earth will also be on Lumos
Right.
in the coming days. But a brilliant tool that you should definitely look at.
Yep.
Yep.
Totally.
So any closing words of wisdom, Ben? Okay, my closing words of wisdom. I'm gonna fill in for Ben. Is always be helping, okay? And if that's a phrase that you want to take from this whole podcast, is always be helping, because when you do that, you never know how help will come your way, and that's the whole point of what a network is all about. Yep. And we both are saying off. Bye bye. See you, and always be helping.